This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air for the first time with Clipper Erickson. We're going to talk about your journey from Juilliard to Dett's rediscovery, and you're going to talk about like your mission in music and what you like to do in terms of like revealing hidden brilliance is like the topic today, what you've done with your record. But I want to thank you again for being on the show today, and we have your website URL there, and we're going to actually swap out a QR code for people if they want to check it out. Right now, we got a QR code up there. If you scan it, it will go to the website we had up there for a second. It will go to your clippererickson.com. So folks, if they want to follow along, they can check out the record that we're going to talk about today, and also your history, because the record we're talking about is My Cup Runneth Over, the complete piano works of Nathaniel Dett. And we'll actually talk about that.
This is so cool. I am so happy to be here. This is really cool to be with you, Phantom.
Well, I love just a little history on this podcast. We've been around since 2016. We initially only interviewed emerging singer-songwriters and musicians. And then we expanded to talk to all types of creative people. So I have a deep love of talking to musicians. And, just a disclosure, I'm a musician myself. I'm a synthesist, composer.
Yeah, we're kind of a crazy lot, aren't we?
Yeah, we like to dive into things. And I love finding out like the history, because I did a deep dive when I was younger into Sun Ra.
Oh yeah, I saw Sun Ra in New York. Oh God, it had to have been. I'm embarrassed to say how long ago it was. It was like in the 80s, but it was really, what a cool thing.
Yeah, because I'm a synthesist, I was really impressed with his use of Moogs.
Yeah,
and Robert Moog talked about like he was one of the first people that actually got for one of the first musicians to actually buy one of his Moogs with Sun Ra, and he immediately adopted it, where a lot of like purists were saying, "Oh, it's not a real instrument."
Well, okay, so the piano is not a real instrument either.
yeah, so folks get. But I kind of digress there. But we're going to talk about your history. But I always ask a couple of questions before we get to the heart of your story. Like, what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Well, that's a really deep question. I have always had a love of music from childhood, and I love discovering things. And I think those two together this is why I've ended up where I'm at with finding composers and finding music that people don't hear that often. I'm also a little bit of a rebel, and classical music tends to be a somewhat conformist, or at least it has been in the past, a somewhat conformist world, where we have all these composers that we decide are the great composers. And if you go to a symphony orchestra concert, you're going to probably run into what it's going to be, a Beethoven, or it's going to be a Brahms, or Mahler or something. So all right. So I'm kind of into finding things that are off the beaten track and composers that don't fit the mold. Because I don't really fit the mold either. So I'm really happy to find these people, and I'm inspired by them, like what they were able to do and the challenges that they faced and how they overcame them is really very inspiring to me. So that's kind of my journey and how it's ended up. And that led me to Nathaniel Dett. And Nathaniel Dett, of course, this is a name that I didn't hear about in conservatory. So I went to Juilliard, I went to Indiana University, I went to Yale. Okay, so all some of the big conservatory type places, and I never heard of anybody named Nathaniel Dett. So one time back in the 90s, I had a good friend who is a marvelous gospel choir director. His name is Donald Dumpson. And he was born and raised in West Philly. So, and I was a big admirer of his choirs, how wonderful they were and what a great director he was. And I asked him, I said, "What do you know about Black composers? Can you tell me something about Black composers? Because this is not something that you run into in conservatories, at least not when I was there." And he said, "Well, check out," he said, "check out William Grant Still, and check out who I'd actually kind of heard of, and then check out John Work, who I'd never heard of, and check out Nathaniel Dett that I've never heard of, and check out the Juba Dance. So I bought a book of all of Nathaniel Dett's music to get the Juba Dance. And then in the mail comes this 200-page volume of all this music by R. Nathaniel Dett. And it's way beyond the Juba Dance. So I played the Juba Dance, and yeah, it's fun. It's a really cool tune. And I had a good time playing it as encores or in recital. But then I started looking at all the rest of it, and it was amazing. How come I never heard of this before? It was just so beautiful, so great harmonies and melodies and terrific piano writing. It really made the piano sound like such a great instrument. And I thought, this needs to be heard more. So I made a first recording back in the late 90s of In the Bottoms, which had been recorded several times before. But then I thought, I need to go on from there. I need to show the rest of the world this music. And then I started reading his biography, like his life and how his life unfolded and all the challenges that he faced. And then I was studying for my doctorate degree at Temple University. It's about 10, 15 years ago. And then it became time to write a dissertation. Okay, so then how do you choose a topic for a dissertation? And people were saying, well, you should pick somebody famous, or you should pick something well-known. And all right, so then am I going to write another dissertation on Mozart piano sonatas, and then it's going to sit on a shelf and gather dust for the next 150 years, and nobody's going to look at it because there's already so many other dissertations on that. So how about writing a dissertation on Nathaniel Dett? And then I got some pushback from people that said, well, his music he's not important enough, and his music isn't that great or whatever. And so I wasn't really sure what to do. And then I got a little bit of pushback really from the other side, because I was talking to a couple of Black friends and said, well, but you got a melanin deficiency and you're white. Okay, so are people going to believe me or pay attention to me? Or what's a white guy doing music by a Black composer? So I had all this resistance, but then I ordered one of the biographies of Dett, and in the mail comes a copy of this biography signed by the author. So I took that as a sign, do this. So I did it. So I wrote the dissertation on Nathaniel Dett, and I did get a couple of people at Temple who were very supportive, and they really clued me into a lot of things that I didn't realize about Dett's music. So I wrote the dissertation, but then I decided I need to go on from here. I need to make the first recording of all of his piano music. Never been done before. So I contacted a friend of mine who was a terrific recording engineer in Germany. And he said, why don't you come over here and do it? So he said, I know this great recording venue. So I went there, sight unseen, and started recording the music. So it was 2 visits to Bavaria. Pretty place, really kind of a cool town, and it was really kind of a cool place to go. And 2 visits there to put it all down on record. And then it came out in November of 2015. And then in 2000, so then I wondered, now that I've done it, where's it going to go? Who's going to listen to it? And where's it going to go? And spent a lot of money putting it together, but it was a mission. It said, this needs to be done. So, if I get the money back, great. If I don't, it's fine. So then in January, I get a review from Gramophone UK. Gramophone UK is the top CD reviewing magazine in the world. And they chose it as a Critic's Choice for 2016. And I was just like, I was just amazed. It's like
did it actually boost the sales, like in Europe? Did it push it?
It definitely pushed it in the UK, and it certainly pushed streaming numbers. It's up over 750,000 streams now. So it's getting heard by people. And then there were more reviews coming in. I got reviews all over the world. I got one from near Barcelona in Catalan. in Catalan language of all things. And then I got a review from Black Grooves. Yeah, I don't know if you Black Grooves, I think, is in the African music department of Indiana University. So those are mostly jazz and hip hop and R&B and stuff like that. So I was just like really tickled that they actually paid attention to.
Well, I think it was really important because a lot of times people are, especially if you go to a conservatory, you're kind of caught up in the canon.
Yeah, exactly. You're caught up in the canon. So, and then people started asking me about, well, we'll come and do a masterclass on this, or do a presentation, and they started to want to really know about this music. So I was really happy. I mean, it's nice to get accolades, of course, but what really made me happy was that the music is getting played.
Yeah, because you got passionate about the music itself.
Other people are playing it. And then a couple of years ago, I was asked to do a presentation for a major piano competition in Westport, Connecticut.
Okay.
And the organizers of the competition made it a requirement that all the contestants had to play something by Nathaniel Dett. Now, that's the way to get people. Okay, pianists are so much into competitions, right? So they're all playing the same Prokofiev sonatas and the same Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, whatever. But they had to play Dett. That was a requirement of the competition. Otherwise, they never would do it. But then that's the way to get young kids to play it.
Well, you kind of need to open your mind. That's the whole thing. Why, if you look at like Miles Davis, he was like, the king of bebop.
Yeah.
And then he challenged the canon himself. He challenged his own canon. And even people that are jazz purists, they were still say, well, once he does Bitches Brew, they don't like it, right? They just like, they don't want to talk about it. They just want to stay in what he did in the 50s. And I was just, that's fine if that's where you want to be. But like even innovators will break their own rules.
Well, you have to. Otherwise, that's how you live. That's how you're a living, developing artist. You can't just regurgitate something that you did before, no matter how successful. You have to recreate every day.
Yeah, you got to push it to like if you think about the bell curve, like in economics and the idea, like everybody's in that middle. But a lot of times, like people who are like really creative are neurodivergent. You go back and you check all the great composers and a lot of the great artists.
Thelonious Monk. Now, I studied with John Ogdon, who was probably the greatest British pianist of the 20th century. I studied with him at Indiana University, and he was like this. He was constantly playing music that nobody else played and recording it, like his Szymanowski or Carl Nielsen, or it's like, well, who are these people, So he would like record all this stuff and play it. So I got that from him, and he loved Thelonious Monk.
Yeah, Monk. I
mean, he was totally into Monk.
Or Coltrane, like when you push the limits, like when you like even a Hendrix, because I look at everything, but when you take a form and you do something that people say we shouldn't do this, well, then you're probably going to do
it. That's your invitation to do it.
That's what you should do. It's like maybe I should challenge that. Like, like why shouldn't I push to like modal jazz? Like, why don't I push the format? Why do I have to always stay within this structure? Why can't I do dissonance? Why can't I live in dissonance? Like, why can't I work with all these different, a lot of different ideas? What people think is normally like a guy like Dylan, like Bob Dylan. Like if you think about the recording industry, you would never have a guy with Dylan's voice at Columbia Records. He kind of changed the whole mindset of they like, who's this guy? The recording engineers look at him. This guy doesn't have a voice. But then like look at what he's writing, right? So then they opened up the door that's the voice isn't the only thing. You have to look at other elements of what the artist is doing.
Yeah, and you have to it takes a lot of courage, because what you put out there, if you're breaking the mold, what you put out there, it may not catch on.
Yeah, it does.
It may be a failure, like nobody listens to it. But on my piano, I have a list of principles by John Coltrane. And one of them is, art created with heart never dies. It waits for the right ears.
If you think about William Blake, You know, William Blake,
So,
one of the greatest Victorian poets, was not known in his time. They found the metal plates with the songs of innocence and experience in a barn,
yeah. Well,
right?
I mean, music, even classical music, is littered with this history too. People don't really realize it, but you have to remember that this happened in classical music too, where people were ignored during their lifetime, and then after their lifetime, people say this is just like incredible, and then
You find the actual
then you
sheet
have to
music.
create just for the purpose of creating. You can't just create. You just can't create because you want to be famous. That never
Yeah,
works.
I mean, I think there's a need in anybody who's a creative, that it's not just the need to be popular. It's
Yeah,
the need to get what's inside outside of you, right? And so there are people that will just do the work, and then they're not found in their lifetime. They're found after life. The great poets, all artists, art forms. You find these examples of painters, poets, musicians, playwright, people who wrote stuff and never worked, but then boom, suddenly
yeah.
a new generation finds it and like, oh, that's the thing.
The
It
list goes
wasn't the thing
on and
back then.
goes on and on. Like Van Gogh, Emily Dickinson. You just go on and on and on with creators who were not appreciated in their lifetime, and then after their lifetime, people discover it. Then it just waits for the right ears or the right eyes, whatever. So that's kind of what I do. I put music out there, and it's a mission. It's a legacy that I leave. And if people appreciate it now, that's wonderful, but they might not. It might happen after I'm not here anymore, and that's okay.
What are
So,
some of the philosophical ideas that influenced like the choices that Dett made? Like, he had some
well, well,
mindset, right?
Dad had a really interesting life too. He was born in Niagara Falls, Ontario. And if you don't know much about Niagara Falls was one of the major, possibly the most important crossing on the Underground Railroad. And Dett's mother was possibly descended from Underground Railroad refugees.
Mm.
And so that was a very interesting place to be from. And then his parents moved to the New York side of Niagara Falls, when he was about 10, and then he became the first African descent person to graduate from Oberlin with a degree in piano and composition. Notice I say African descent and not African American.
Yeah.
Because if I say that, the Canadians don't like that.
You don't like it.
And the Canadians are not so happy with us right now. Anyway, so let's.
Yeah, I can understand that.
make more problem. Okay, so I'd say African descent, but he became the first person to graduate from Oberlin Conservatory in 1908, and then he followed a career in HBCUs for his life. He was first at Lane in Tennessee, and then was tapped to begin the music department, to found the music department at Hampton in Virginia.
Oh, wow. So he was able to be successful as a professor, or at least.
Yeah, he was very successful as a professor. He started that department, the music department at Hampton, and developed the choral program to the point where he took those groups on tours to New York, to Carnegie Hall, the Library of Congress.
Oh, wow.
And also on a big tour to Europe in 1930. And then for some strange reason, Hampton let him go. And then he proceeded to get his master's degree. I mean, this is after he's already almost 50 years old. Imagine going back to get your master's degree. He never stopped learning. He never stopped wanting to know more.
To push it.
That's
a real creative person.
Yeah, he got his master's degree at Eastman. And his thesis at Eastman was an oratorio called The Ordering of Moses. And that was performed once and then pretty much forgotten until quite recently. There have been more performances of this. The Oberlin College performed it at Carnegie a couple of years ago. And they asked me to do a presentation on the piano works. But so they finally discovered one of their own It's like, well, this is your guy. You need to celebrate him. He has an honorary doctorate there. You need to be playing his music and celebrating him. So they did that. And so that oratorio is now getting played. And then he lived most of his life after that in Rochester and also North Carolina. He taught at Bennett. And he passed in 1943 when he was training choruses for the USO during the war.
Oh, wow.
So musically, he had an interesting journey. In the beginning, he composed music that was in the very popular idiom of the day. He composed ragtime, he composed marches, like light stuff. Okay, and he was very good at it because evidently he could just soak up whatever music was around him at the time and do it very well. So that was fine. But then when he went to Oberlin, he had an epiphany. The Kneisel Quartet came and performed one of Dvorak's string quartets. And as you might know, Dvorak was Czech and came to the United States to teach and became familiar with spirituals through Harry Burleigh, who was one of his students. So basically the story goes that Harry Burleigh had a work-study thing going at the what it was called, the National Conservatory, which became Juilliard in the 1890s. And he was like sweeping the halls and Dvorak and singing all these spirituals that he was taught by his mother or grandmother. And Dvorak heard this and was fascinated and said, this is your language. This is what American music can be based on. This can be the future of American music. So he challenged all of these students to write music using that as a material, as he had done for the music from Bohemia. Mm-hmm. So he wrote a string quartet that used some of this material, and that was the quartet that Dett heard at Oberlin, and it changed his whole direction. He said, this is the music that I want to write, because this is what my grandmother was singing to me when I was a child. Mm-hmm. Back in Dett's time, Negro spirituals were forgotten. Yeah. They were like eclipsed because people didn't want to have anything to do with them. That was from slavery days. It was embarrassing. And white people were making fun of them, fun of the style in blackface minstrel shows. So it was music without a home. So somebody needed to come in and rescue this marvelous body of music. And Dett was part of that movement. John Work was another person who rescued all of this music at Fisk in Nashville. So Dett became part of that movement to catalog and preserve and arrange spirituals. He even wrote extensively about them, what the language is like and what you can do with it and the future of it and what its influence would be. So that is a primary influence on all of his mature music that he wrote after Oberlin. And you can hear that influence all over the piano music. There's only a couple of places where he actually quotes a spiritual. One is the last movement of one of his suites, and another is the first movement of one of his suites in his later time. But mostly the music just has this as a foundational influence.
Just a question in terms of him being a professor and also being in academia, and given the time period in America, it probably wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to make any kind of commercial headway, right, with his music, right?
Well, there was more opportunity maybe than you would think, but it's a strange kind of world. People loved his music at the time, but in the segregated world, he had to stay in his world. Mm-hmm. There's stories about when he took the choirs on tour. Oh, they would be packed houses, but there would be the section for white audience members, and the choir had to go in through the back door.
So he was like, it was kind of the situation where, you could perform, you could make money on the road, you do these shows, but then you can't actually turn that into a vinyl record
you might turn it into a vinyl record, but you're not going to make any money from it.
Yeah, it's not going to get promoted by the structure of the record industry, because they're going to say, where's it coming from?
Yeah, right.
So they're not gonna put any marketing effort into it.
Yeah, but people really wanted the music, so they're going to get the music. It's just, well, that the creators may not get paid properly for it.
Yeah, maybe other bands, if they did, other people play his music at the time, or what?
Yeah, well, a famous pianist who was Australian named Percy Granger became one of his champions and played his music all over the place. So he was obviously white from Australia and championed Dett's music and got it out there. So that really helped him, and Dett ended up writing music for this guy.
Wow. Did he was there anything like a BMI where he was getting any of the credit or the royalties from performances at
Not
that
so
time?
much. He would only get credit from publications. So when his music was published, then he might get some royalties from that. But nobody makes money from that. You have to survive on your teaching or your position in academia, and then what you do is like your passion.
Yeah, passion. It's like a passion play.
Yeah. So it's like you're not making money from making the records or publishing the music, and really nobody did. Beethoven didn't make money from publishing piano sonatas and symphonies that nobody else could play. So
it's like the typical artist. You have to have some rich person that supports you, or
right. Yeah. Okay. Dett had his work in academia. Beethoven had his wealthy aristocratic friends who gave him
that type of thing. Either you work in academia, you get the money there. You have your people who are donating to you because you're the cause.
Yeah, right. So that you have patrons. So that's
patron.
That's another whole subject that we could get into. Like how did the great composers actually make a living? Well, sometimes
they have a patron,
and sometimes they did something else.
Yeah, they had a day job. Typical musician, we have our day gig.
So it's pretty much the only good time was when back in the 1700s or earlier, when you could have a job for a wealthy aristocrat dude, or you could work for a church. Like, for instance, Bach. Well, he just went around to different churches or wealthy aristocrats, and who would pay him to write music.
Yeah, you got to get that.
So that was maybe a little easier in some ways. And then they all went away, and then it's like, who's going to pay you to do this stuff? To be a creator.
That's to be rubbed today. Like even music today, like with all this AI.
Oh yeah, that's like that's
people impersonating. You got bands like pull their catalog off of Spotify, and then the AI impersonator comes up and puts your stuff back, right? And it's not you.
Yeah, well, luckily now there's movements to say, well, you can say, and which I actually had to sign. One of the people that license is involved in licensing. That I get sometimes small royalties from. It actually asks you to sign a petition, say, do not use my music as a basis for AI generation.
Oh yeah, I had to like opt out of certain things because they were going to try to train
exactly. It's a really bad. Yeah, it's really it's a real big mess out there.
Well, it seems like it's like the whole idea of if you're an artist or if you're a creative person and you have your IP, you have your intellectual property. And normally up to this point, we've had copyright law and patent law. And it says like that is yours if you go and do the paperwork and you license it and you copyright it and you get your registration, you get your ISBN numbers, you go register your work, you set it up with BMI, whatever, you do all of that stuff. And now these guys say, oh, I'm a big tech bro and I can just take it. And I don't have to follow because my machine goes beyond the law. My tech is beyond the law, and I can just I should be allowed to just take it and use it because that's for the better good. Like, really? Is it for the better good or is it for your good?
Yeah, really. Exactly. It's really what a mess it is. It's a really big mess.
Because you
So, I
want
mean,
people to be that kind of neurodivergent, like do the work, like be creative for creative sake, and if people feel like they're gonna get ripped off, why would they? How many people are gonna actually want to be like a Dett today? Right? How many people are gonna? I know there's a lot of musicians. We just do it. Go to Louisiana, go to New Orleans. Go to a blues. Like there's always somebody that wants to do it. They're gonna do it. Is this the question? Is are they making it so hard for us as artists because they just always want to pick on us and like take our stuff and never compensate us?
yeah, it's not just us. It happened before. It happened a lot, and people just
Yeah,
creative
it's
artists.
a continuum. We're
Yeah,
still in this.
somebody's making a lot of money, but it's not the person that actually wrote it.
Wrote it. Yeah.
It's really sad. It's really a sad thing. So somehow we find a way to make a living and keep the lights on and do what we do. And sometimes we have people that care about our work. When I did the album back 10 years ago, I ran a crowdfunding campaign, and what the church that I'm director of music at also helped a lot with getting that CD out the door, because it's a lot of money, and you're not going to get that money back. I get some royalties, but it's nothing that's going to pay
I mean,
back.
it's kind of tilted against us. The way the systems are built, they're not really built to compensate the artist. Right? They're kind of not designed to compensate the artist from the start.
we have to rely on people. We have to rely on people that are outside the system and say, yeah, I like what you do, and I want to support your art. And so you can make more.
So have you thought of
what Beethoven did, except it's not going to be Duke somebody or other. It's going to be just a regular person that left.
Well, you get the Patreon world of get people out there who don't like what you're doing and they support you. It's kind of like the independent movement outside of like the normal media today, where if somebody wants to have their voice, they become a YouTuber. They get online. They find a way to create vinyl, and they say, I'm not putting my I've talked to a lot of independent musicians, and they're like, in order to not go on to the streaming services, they're putting out small batches of vinyl and touring out the back of the Econoline van. So they are making their product rare, right? And they're not putting it out in the ether. They're making it so when they get a buzz, they get a following. That following can keep them alive because they're in tune with their base, and they don't have to have millions of streams. They could have 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 diehards that stay with them for 10 years.
Yeah.
And they can survive. That's like, it's a new model. It's like a micro model.
Yeah, it's a micro model. Yeah, that's one way to keep it alive. I mean, I rely on the recording company that I use. That even though it's hard to make it work because it's expensive, but at least they protect the work.
Yeah, you want to keep protected, because the way things are today, the people are willing to just steal your work, at the drop of a hat. It's just, there's a lot of people out there like just scheming and scamming, but like the passion, like a artist is always going to be willing. Kind of like Hendrix got in trouble because he was always signing every contract he ever got just so he could play, which is tendency of an artist. Like, I want to be able to play, so I'll sign.
Yeah, you want to play, but then what are you giving away? Yeah.
So
the nature of the artist is like, you're so much into art, you think, well, I shouldn't really have to get paid for this, but of course you have to get paid for this. You have to live. You have to buy groceries and have a place to live, just like everybody else.
The starving artist, it's like a badge of honor, but you got to get smart, because it's like, you're going to do the work no matter what, but you should have a little bit of a hand in. I shouldn't be totally starving. Like I deserve, the work deserves compensation because it's worthy of compensation. So you have to start to believe that what you do is actually worthy. It is socially worthy.
Yeah, that it's something that matters to people, and certainly Dett matters to people. It's beautiful and very meaningful. It has a lot of hidden narratives in the music. As I went through my dissertation, I discovered a lot of narratives that weren't really talked about even in the biographies. So I really found a lot of treasure in the music.
Have
It's
you
really
thought of
cool.
actually maybe doing a new book based on the way you?
Well, I think what I
you've
need to
actually
do is publish a couple of papers on how some of this narrative works.
Mhm.
So, of what the meaning was and how it's positioned in Black history in the 30s and the 40s. So one of his pieces actually was one of the last pieces he wrote. It's called The 8 Bible Vignettes. And okay, so it's one of these titles where you think, when you think vignette, what do you usually think of? Something small, inconsequential, like maybe not so important. But the thing about when I started to study Black history and Dett's world, you realize that it's loaded with hidden messages.
Or like hidden meanings, like a lot of
Hidden meanings, because that's the whole thing about spirituals, is that there's hidden meanings everywhere. So you start to have your antenna up about what does that really mean?
what's the
Okay,
code?
look behind
Yeah,
the
is there
covers
the
and
code?
see what's really going on there. So then I found out that the key to it is the number 8. Dett was a member of the Rosicrucian Society.
Mm.
And so, which is a secret society that is kind of into the occult, and they're very much into numerology. So,
So he's got hidden numerology.
so what does 8 mean in numerology? Okay, so 8 is a number that signifies new beginnings, because the 7 is the number of completion, like 7 days of the week. It's like a unit. It's like a complete thing. It's 7. So 8 is what comes next. New beginning.
New beginning.
New beginning. So then you look at that the way he's structured the piece, and you find out that the whole piece is a narrative about the oneness of humanity and a new world of racial reconciliation, because of the way he's woven the Bible scenes that he's chosen to relate that in the music
into the piece.
Yeah, so it's a really fascinating piece. It's long. It's about 39 minutes long. So the way he structures it is he has four pieces that are related to the Old Testament. And those are the first 4, and he starts with Father Abraham. It's one of the only 2 pieces of his piano music that quotes a spiritual. So he has the Father Abraham spiritual in a very majestic, big setting, and that alternates with a Hebrew melody. And then the second movement, this is the one that really is the puzzler. The second movement is called Desert Interlude, and it is portraying the character of Hagar. Why that? Okay, it's not one of your top 10 Sunday school stories, right? Why is Hagar in here? Well, because, as one of my advisors said, is because in Black culture, sometimes Hagar is considered the mother of the Africans.
Oh, so he stuck it in there, yeah.
Okay, so now we have, all right, so now this is a personal narrative. So there's a W.C. Handy tune. I think it's called Aunt Hagar's Chillin'. Okay, it's a blues tune. So it's part of that culture. Okay, so then, all right, this is like shifting the narrative in a whole new way. And then the third movement is called As His Own Soul. And that's about the love of Jonathan and David in the book of Samuel. And the fourth movement is called Barcarolle of Tears. And it's a very somber, sad movement that has this very beautiful, peaceful ending. So it's kind of like everything is reconciled in the end of it. So that's the first 4. Then the second group of 4 is all stories from the New Testament. So he starts with a piece called "I Am the True Vine." So we know who that is about, right? So that's the main figure of the New Testament, and it's a fugue, which is a very strict classical kind of form. So that you think of, oh, this is very learned and it's like J.S. Bach and whatever, but it has three voices. And the theme of the fugue is based on a figure that divides the octave into three equal parts. And it's in triple meter. So there's all this three stuff going on. All right, so we know what that is. It's all about the Trinity, right? So then there's numerology.
Trinity, yeah.
Okay, so now it's numerology, and then the next movement is about Martha. Martha complained, and it actually uses the blues scale. So Martha is singing all of her complaint and her troubles in the blues scale, with this sort of ostinato repetition in the left hand. It's a really imaginative piece. And then the seventh movement. Okay, so then where do we pick up this Hagar thread? The seventh movement is a set of variations on an African chant. And it's by far the biggest movement in the whole set. It's long. It's about over 10 minutes long. So it's a very substantial piece of music that relates strongly to Africa. And he writes at the beginning of it, the quote from the Gospel of John, about other sheep, and the piece is called Other Sheep. Other sheep I have that I must bring into the fold. So that's his, and he sets that text as a setting at the beginning of the piece, and then the African chant variations proceed. So then that is the fulfillment of the Hagar narrative. So the second movement and the seventh movement are related to each other. So that makes an arch form. And then the last movement is called Madrigal Divine, and it's a setting of Psalm 23. And that's where the title of the album comes from My Cup Runneth Over. That's from Psalm 23, which he sets as the climax of that setting. So then the whole thing is about how the African race becomes one with everyone. And it's about the oneness of humanity, all set. It's a cultural narrative set to music.
That's really very expansive. It took a lot of it's like a vision that you actually had to implement and then really have that level of detail to piece it all together. So it's so I can see how that's have you played this piece and has this been replayed today to the public? Have people?
Oh yeah, I've performed it in concert. It's demanding. It's very difficult, and so I don't do it so often. But when I'm courageous, then I put this whole thing together because it's huge. It's 40 minutes long.
That's a long piece.
Yeah, but you can catch it on the album. It's the whole thing on the album, and sometimes I post movements of it in the album. So I post things, clips of it. So it's a really remarkable set of music.
That alone kind of draws me into Dett in his sophistication and the level of discipline it takes.
Yeah, it's highly sophisticated in how he weaves all this together and the structure of it, and it's not evident. I mean, you have to look under the covers.
Yeah, you gotta listen to it probably a bunch of times to pull it together. It's like you're not gonna pick it all up on one listen.
And read the notes. You have to read the notes. It's like, okay, these are the little teasers that he puts in and he was a really wonderful writer. So he was writing his own notes, but he doesn't really tell you all of this stuff. You have to figure it out kind of for yourself.
Yeah. And the thing today that I find with these forms, like classical forms and jazz and experimental music, they demand your attention, right? And in this age, people are so divided in their attention. They people can only watch 15 seconds, 30 seconds. If they hear a song, if they don't hear something in the first 30 seconds, they pass on. So this
Yeah, that is a
requires,
big problem.
yeah,
You can't
requires,
have that attitude to something like the 8 Bible vignettes because it's like a whole journey. It's like a whole world. I mean,
yeah,
15 seconds of it is not going to tell you anything.
yeah. That's the thing. I was
So
like,
that
I
is a
wonder.
problem these days is people's attention spans, and how do you grab people into like, yeah, you really need to dive into this and understand the thing as a whole, because the whole is more than the sum of the parts, and the parts are really beautiful. You can listen to one of the movements, and it's like, yeah, that's really wonderful stuff. But then when you put it all together, then it's just that much more.
Yeah. Well, that's the concern I have, like with the audience. I'm a child of the '70s, so
Yeah.
I was listening to vinyl. I would listen to whole albums. I'm watching movies and I don't have a cell phone pinging me. I don't have an iPad. So I'm actually, they're saying today script writers for movies are saying they can't have Easter eggs. They can't have complicated scripts because people are so divided in their attention. They're on their cell phone, they're on their iPad, and they have to have very simple scripts. And I'm like, really? Like, why
Yeah,
can't we
it's just
demand audiences
it's all alike.
to
There's
be
no
to actually have a little discipline, to be like, can you stay in this piece? Can you stay in this book? Can you stay on this album? Or I have to dumb down my work because you can't stay in it.
Yeah, but no, you don't do that because people, at the final analysis, people don't want that. The people that make the money selling all this stuff think that that's what people want, but inside, people don't really want that. It's because it's not satisfying.
Well, it's like junk food. It's junk
Yeah,
food.
it's like junk food. So it's junk food for your ears. And so at some point, you want something more. You want to go. You want to immerse yourself in a big piece and understand that and let it take you into another world.
Because this type of art form was meant for you to give your attention, right? So when you're going to listen to something that's 40 minutes long or 10 minutes long, like, you have to buy into it. That you can't be distracted. You can't be like thinking about all these other things. You have to actually let the piece take over, right? And a lot of times today we have people that just can't commit to actually the art form. It's like you need to actually have a commitment that you're going to turn off the cell phone. You're going to turn off the iPad. You're not going to be watching the TV. You're actually going to pay attention to the vinyl.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to sit there with your headphones and sit at your chair and listen to it, and maybe go back and listen to it again and again and again.
If you get past that point, if you follow that discipline and turn all that stuff off, then you find out what it really is. You find, and it enriches your life if you do that, and you notice it, and then you crave more. Like,
I think
your body, your ears and your mind resets. It's just like getting off of junk food. Okay, you think you want more junk food, but then when you say, all right, today's the day I stop eating that, and then little by little, your body thanks you.
Thank you. Like when you need to, turn off all this stuff and take a walk in the woods with your bare feet, with your feet touch soil.
Yeah, and I think there's starting to be a movement of people that are getting into that. Like, I talk to my daughters, and they start. I need a day off, turn all that stuff off. I need a day to just sit and watch a movie for a day and wrap Christmas presents, and no messages, no social media, none of it. It's all off.
Yeah,
young people are craving that now.
That we need to teach kids, like, artists, like, like you have like art history. You need like a music history class for people to be like consumers of music, so that people learn. It's like, it's not just a playlist. It's not just, that's like the it's not all beat. It's not all beat focused. It's not all like, it's got to be groove focused. No, like, why aren't you willing to listen to, like, like back in the day, like a Frank Zappa and the Mother's Intervention? Not everybody's going to listen to that. Right? Not everybody's going to listen to Jefferson Airplane or the Grateful Dead. But the people that did, they ended up following them. They ended up going to every show, listening to every record,
Yeah.
diving deep into the work because it was like, wow, like look what Zappa's doing here. Look what Jefferson Airplane's doing there. Look what the Dead are doing. You get pulled into the form, and you're like, and you're not into like the T-shirt or the poster or all the artifice. You're into the music,
Yeah,
like
you're
into what they're actually playing.
there for the music. And classical music is the same way. So once you get into it, then you find out like how marvelous it is. And once you get past the notion that, oh, I don't know enough about it, or it's too sophisticated, or if it's for rich people, or whatever barrier you're putting up, then once you get past that and just listen to it, then you find out how enriching it is.
Well, it's telling a story. To me, it's like the way I listen to music is like it's a sound painting, it's a sound movie. And when I listen to deeper pieces that are longer than like 2 minutes, you listen to some like great jazz pieces.
Or an album. Like, the people that do all these albums, they're constructing that album in a certain way. They're not just doing a couple like short things and then just piling them in there randomly. Like the album has a structure.
Yeah, the structure. I mean, you're telling a story.
Yeah, so that's you're telling a story with the album.
Yeah, that's why I like the album format for anything, because like if you just hear somebody's single or you hear one song on a playlist, you have no idea who that artist is. It's like reading the cliff notes for a novel. Do you really know what that novel's about unless you read it? And so if you're only getting a snippet of what that artist can do, you have no idea who they are. And so to me, you should want to dive into their full piece of the work.
Yeah. So if you listen to Dett, you can start with the Juba Dance, or you can start with After the Cakewalk or the Cave of Winds March or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, that's fun. But please listen to more. Like listen to one of the whole suites. There's 6 of them. And the first ones are very youthful. They're very romantic, very playful and sweet. And then the later ones are more heavy and meaningful and probing. So they're it's reflecting his life. It's reflecting his life, from when he was young and carefree and, the world is like fun to, then he like lives life, and it's a hard life. It's a really hard life. And then what are you going to say when you get to the end?
On your album, you were able to see from his beginning to his end.
Yeah, and it goes chronologically, the way the album is structured.
Oh, it's structured, so you actually have it from the beginning to the end of his life.
You have the beginning. Magnolias is the first suite. That's what he wrote when he was at Lane. And there's magnolia trees on the campus, so he wrote a suite called Magnolias, and it's just about these scenes in the South. So magnolia trees, deserted cabin, Lady Love, it's a dance number, and Mammy, and pieces like that. And then In the Bottoms is the next one. Then it starts to become a little bit more personal, and it's all about the lives of people that lived in the river bottoms. So it's about the night, what the night is like, and his song is like a person who's singing into his sorrows into the night. And then Honey, it's all of it very sweet and fun. And then Barcarolle, about being on a boat or a raft out on the water, on the shiny water. And then the Juba Dance, it's about the lives of the people that live there. And then you have Enchantment. Enchantment is a narrative piece about initiation into a secret society. And it's connected with Egypt. And it was written in 1923, and that was right after King Tut's tomb was opened. So everybody was into Egypt then. And then there's Cinnamon Grove. Cinnamon Grove is all about his favorite poets. So there's a John Donne poem, and then there's a Wordsworth, a Longfellow poem, and then there's a piece that's about Rabindranath Tagore. If you don't know who Tagore was a Hindu polymath. And he was the first non-white person to win a Nobel Prize for literature, in 2015. And he was like a hero to all these creators all over,
Mhm.
particularly in the United States. So Dett wrote a piece, and it's one of his most heartfelt creations as a tribute to Tagore. And then you have Tropic Winter, all these scenes from the tropics. And then you have the Bible vignettes. Each one is a world in its own that reflects his life at that time.
I think it's
So,
just it's super interesting that you were able to capture like the whole complete work.
yeah.
And
Well, that's the benefit of doing a complete work rather than just one snapshot. It's like you see the development of the style and the changes in his style. It's not like the music got better. It's just reflected his.
It's different. Like as artists over time, they evolve and they change, and they might, they might change in ways that maybe you might not, resonate with, or you will. But I think it's always cool to have that archival picture of an artist, like their complete works. So then, because everybody's always today is like, well, what's the best example of this artist? Well, it's hard to do because like artists go through phases, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you say this is their best work relative to what?
Yeah, right, exactly. You could do the same thing with the Beethoven piano sonatas, 32 piano sonatas. Okay, well, did he get better as he went along? No, it got different.
Yeah.
Okay, so the earlier pieces are more like they're either very showy or very extroverted or very passionate, and his later pieces are more introspective and probing, and his middle pieces are like storming the heights, and they're all from different parts of his life. So how can he say, well, what's the Beethoven sonata that you like the best, or the Beethoven sonata that encapsulates Beethoven? Well, you can only say it shows Beethoven at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of point in time.
Beethoven there.
It's very point in time when you pick out an artist work. It depends on what period they're in, right? What and then also it's very subjective. Like what do you like if you're somebody that's totally into canon and you just want like this is what's the best example of this canon.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're kind of like into a very narrow lane. What you think is good is going to be a very narrow impression of what's good.
Yeah, it's going to be really, and you're missing out. You're really missing out on a great world if you do that. You just like pick the greatest hits or something like that.
Yeah, I always want the B-side. I want the deeper track. I want the non-single, right? Because I think that is more representative of who that artist is, right? Because a lot of times the single, a lot of artists, if you ask them, it's like they don't like their single because they have to play it 10,000, 20,000 times, right? It becomes something that's like an albatross around their neck. I mean, maybe it feeds them, but it's not exactly what they think is like their best work.
That story happens a lot in classical music. And of course it happens in the pop world too, or in the jazz world. Like for instance, Rachmaninoff's most popular piece is the C sharp minor prelude. And he hated it. He himself hated this piece. So it got him famous, but it was something he wrote when he was like 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah,
and then later, every concert, people say, you have to play that piece. And he hated it.
Yeah, that's what happens. Davy artists, that's something you wrote when you're 19, 21, and you got to play it when you're 45, 50. You got to keep on playing. I wrote that when I was 19. Like,
yeah, so what about what I wrote now? What I wrote last week? Why don't you want to hear that? You want to hear this other thing that I don't like anymore?
Yeah, so that's not where I am. I'm not a 19-year-old. I'm not in my 20s anymore, right?
Yeah,
I've kind of gone beyond that, but you still see me as that, and that's kind of the curse of fame. Your audience sees you as the way they want to see you, right? Yeah, and what they feel from you. And what they feel is important.
It's nice to be famous, but it sometimes it can be irritating because then people only know this snapshot of you that doesn't reflect your whole person.
Yeah, it's only a point in time. It's not the whole. I've always been a big believer in doing a deep dive in anybody I get into, whether it's Orson Welles, William Blake.
That's it. Well, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I want to know I don't care about like what's the most popular piece. I'm actually probably looking for the piece nobody knows about, because that's
Yeah.
what I want to see. Is I want to know who they really are. So I want to see like what were their missteps, what were their greatest achievements, but nobody appreciated it.
Yeah. So
It's like,
that's your guy then. Like listen to the music and do a deep dive, listen through it and see how the style changes. And earlier on it's like it's very romantic, and then it gets a little bit more jazz-like and a little bit more complex in places.
that
And
sounds.
it,
I've
it
got a mission. I've
yeah,
got a
so
mission for the next
do
couple of
a
days.
deep dive there, and but it's really a love of mine, and I have more projects coming. I have the Florence Price Sonata in E minor coming out
Oh,
in
cool.
February, and that's really a quite.
So you're continuing to go and look for like these
Oh yeah,
underdogs.
and then my next project is a multi-year project called Sonatas of the Nations.
Mm.
So a sonata is it's a severe kind of cerebral thing. It's like a large piece of music that has a lot of sections that all have to fit together in a certain way. So it has a very big intellectual component. But I'm also interested in world music. So I selected composers who their ethnic national styles were a big influence on their art. And they write sonatas. So how do these two things fit together? Because they're kind of in conflict.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
But how do you resolve that conflict and you come out with this piece? That really interests me, and how that conflict is solved. Because then solving those two opposites creates something new and wonderful. So the composers are Florence Price. That one piece is coming out in February. And then I also have a piece by Wilhelm Stenhammar, who's Swedish. And of course, with a name like Erickson, right, it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested in what's going on with Sweden and Swedish folk music and what that influence is. And then the next person is Joaquin Turina, who is Spanish. So Spanish music was a big influence on him. And then Carlos Chavez, who is Mexican. So his music is very influenced by Native American.
Indigenous, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so the mestizo and the people that he knew in Mexico. So I put all the pieces are wildly different.
Well, you're doing like what I think is interesting, because like there's so much sameness today, and you're diving into history and also showing us variation and showing us like uniqueness and individual like people's individual stories and work that's maybe not widely known, which I think is interesting when we see all this like cloning and sameness out there, that to be able to find stuff that's historic and maybe not known and deep and interesting, and it's just and it's just beautiful work. So I congratulate
all the sameness is anti-human, because we're not the same. That's not what humans are. We're all very different, and that's the greatest thing about humanity is all these different cultures and different people, and that's what I'm into. And
yeah, well, that's the narrative I like. I like things that are very expansive, very out there, where you need to explore. You need to like push your comfort zone, because like things that are comfortable are safe. But if you're an artist, you usually aren't going to stay where it's safe. You're going to kind of push it.
You have to. That's what.
Or you're going to just be playing in the bar, playing the oldies band. Just play the same song every day.
Oh God! You look at those guys, and they are so bored. They're bored out of their minds.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them, because they got to put food on the table, so they have to take the gig. But man, they look bored.
Yeah, it's not like Zappa. It's not like it's not Sun Ra. But I want to thank you for being here and have a great weekend. I want to let people know, use your phone to scan that QR code. They will go to clippererickson.com. check out the album. It's on Spotify. It's on all the streaming services, right?
Yeah, Pandora, Apple Music, all of them. So if you go there, if you go to my website and you like what I do, sign up for my newsletter. So I let you know what live streams I'm doing or albums that are coming out, what I'm doing. And when I have a new project and I need some support, then support what I'm doing, and it's really, that's what we live off of.
Thank you. I hope everybody either uses the URL there. That will be clickable on all the platforms. We've been on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. That will be in the podcast description, or just take your phone and scan the QR code to go right there right now. I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's just been a really pleasurable hour to chat with you and chew the fat. And, I think we look at things a lot. We're coming from very different angles, but we come to the same place. We're looking at, we really have the same attitude towards things.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I want to thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.